What's going on, everybody? You know who I am, Sam Dando. We're back at it again with another RTN season coming up for the new set, The Hunted. A lot of new heroes to pick from, a lot of new exciting strategies to employ. But what about a classic? A beloved hero that a year ago came out and was dominating, and right now is not nearly as good or as dominant, but it's just as fun. I'm going to be bringing you a deck tech today for Kayo, Armed and Dangerous, the true Chaos hero that came before all these arachnes that are trying to pose as Chaos heroes. No, brutes are the real Chaos heroes. So I hope you enjoy this. Let's get into it. I am not a fan of cast bones right now. I'm just going to come out and say that. I have never truly been a huge fan of cast bones. I think the card is super fun, but I do not think that it is the ideal way to play KO right now. We're just going to be playing an anti-meta tempo KO, where you just want to present big numbers, disrupt, and just beat the heck out of your opponent. So getting into the main deck here, nothing too crazy. We're just starting with our Wild Rides, starting with our Bare Fangs, and then Command and Conquer, because obviously Command and Conquer is insane. And then we got Swing Big. These are our 4 main deck reds. Pretty simple. We don't want to be bricking. We do not want to be drawing a bunch of all red hands. We want to make sure that everything is smooth and consistent, and that every turn we can just do 2 card 8s or 2 card 6s, or swing with the claw. So you'll see I have a much higher resource density in my build than I think I've seen a number of other decks, and I love that. I do not want to cut that down because that really helps with the consistency and the resilience of your hands against all these assassins that are going to be disrupting you all the time. Speaking of consistency and resilience, so then we get to the yellows. We're going to have, yet again, yellow Wild Ride, yellow Bare Fangs, because we just want to make sure that we're doing the thing all the time. And then we get to the good cards, Blood Rush Bellows, which is still insane, Beast Within, which has a lot of interesting implications right now in the metagame. One of the ways that Brute has to be very resilient to all this hand disruption is Beast Within. So, you get Codex, you discard Beast Within, boom, get another card back to your hand. It actually insulates a lot of the current disruption. Now, of course, the new Arachnes have the whole stupid banish stuff from your hand and all that, but out of all the other classes too, there are more Jarls showing up and you get pummeled, you discard the Beast Within, you're chilling. It's still very, very good for defensive play and super aggressive play. And then more disruption, we have Send Packing. It's the yellow version of Command and Conquer, obviously. Some people are not main decking this. I think at this point, just main deck it. It's a yellow, it's a 3-block, and everyone cares about their arsenal at this point. So any kind of meaningful interaction that we can engage with the opponent, I still think is worthwhile just having in the main deck at this point. All right, and then we get to the blues. We got 3 Mighty Windup, 3 Blue Agile Windup. Now you might look at this and say, why am I not playing the yellows? I don't think the yellows are really that good right now, especially. I don't really want to utilize agility all the time. I think a lot of the games you're going to be playing now, you're going to be mid-ranging, you're going to be blocking, trading 2-card hands, and then you want to capitalize on your bigger hands with Wild Rides. And then, as you'll see in the side deck, I do have Pulpings as well. You can side those in if you want to be more aggressive. But the Blue Agile Windups are just far better, I think, than the yellows at this point. If you want to play the yellows, go for it. Even red is a consideration with Prism being so prevalent. But my build is way more like Andrew Rothmill's build from what was that, Pro Tour LA, I think, something like that, where just playing the blues, no cast bones, just trying to be super consistent all the time. Then we have the classic Wrecker Rump. It's a 6-power blue, which is actually quite relevant, just being a popper, and that you can block with this in your Apex and still get the Might. I still think it's a super relevant card to have in the deck just for that alone. 3 blue Smash Instinct, 3 blue Riled Up, 3 blue Assault and Battery, 3 blue Run Roughshod, which is an awesome card, super good, and then I have 2 blue Pack Call. I love this blue package. This is just my favorite way to have my resources laid out, and you're a brute, so you don't have a ton of diversity in your toolkit, but these all offer quite a good amount of utility, surprisingly. The blue Smash Instincts are actually quite relevant for closing out games. Sometimes you get to the end and you have an agility and all you need to do is just push over that last bit of damage. You can just open the turn with a blue Smash Instinct to intimidate and then clear over the top to kill them. Super relevant. I've won so many games that way. Riled Up, again, just being a pseudo 6-power where every bit of value you get counts, right? We're always trying to carry over the Might. We're always trying to get that one bit of extra damage. Riled Up does that. Assault and Battery Blue, I actually love the reds. Right now isn't really the meta for the red, but blue is still relevant. It helps you convert those 4-card hands, sometimes with 3-card hands that really don't do much, but at least you can convert them into a setup turn. So still super relevant, still use it all the time, play it out. And then the run roughshods, which are just so good. Like anytime you have a run roughshod, I put that thing in Arsenal, I keep it in my hand, I pitch it. I'm always happy to see this card. So super, super good blue. And then the 2 pack call. I play these just because I actually really like the utility of being able to look at the top card of my deck. Sometimes it feels bad if it's like a reckless swing or a blood rush that you really wanted and it gets sent to the bottom. But you can be mindful about that. Like when you choose to block with this card, you also do have to consider like, okay, if it's the end of the game and I want to get my reckless and I haven't seen one in a while, I should be more cautious about blocking with this, because if I do flip my reckless and I kind of get screwed because of that, it's not a good situation. I've had that happen and it's been heartbreaking. So, but it does really make sure that you can set up for your bigger turns. Like if you do have a pulping or a wild ride and you want to use your sash and you don't want to have that situation happen where you like play your sash and then go wild ride and then you rip the blood rush off the top and of course you hit it out of the 1 of 3 and then your entire dreams just die right there. Pack Haul can help you. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes it can save your dreams and keep them alive. And that's what we want as brutes, right? All we want is for our dreams to stay alive. All right. On that note, this is also going to be like a philosophical life discussion too, because I feel like Brute always allows you to really look inward and really reflect on yourself as a person and reflect on life, just given how chaotic life can be. Sometimes you have to embrace it, you know? Sometimes you got to take some risks in order to make some gains. So as we get into the sideboard here, I think this is like 50 cards, as I'm very prepared counting all this. I'm pretty sure this is like 50. So then I sideboarded in 10 cards. So now we get to the fun package. This is just the anti-meta, I hate your deck sideboard cards. So we got 3 Weakest Link, 3 Erase Face, which is really good in this meta right now. Same with Weakest Link. I know some people cut down to like 2 Weakest Link. I say forget it, just play it. Send it, play 3. It's 3 block, 2 cost curve, 6 attack, send it. And then we get some of the spice. We got 2 Amnesias, which are for Viserai and Zen. And then I guess Katsu, if you have a Katsu around. And then Vincent as well. I still think this is a pretty relevant disruption currently in the game, super impactful. And then for my spice, my 1 of Cut Through the Facade. You could just play a 3rd Amnesia if you wanted, but I really like this card because, for one, with all these prisms running around, it's a 7 power, which is actually quite relevant. And then you play this into like Viserai or something, and they cry when you just attack and blow up their Malefic, because they can't really do much about it, especially with a Might. If this comes in for 8 or 9 damage, 2 card 8, blow up incantation, super high value, and it really does slow them down actually quite a bit. So I consider playing more of these, but I think it's got too many things going for it that are not really what we want to be doing. Like being a 3 cost for 1 is not really what you want in Kayo. Being a 2 block is not really what you want. So if I was to play 2 of these, I'd be a little concerned about like drawing on a blood rush curve or having multiple in my hand. And that's not really something I want to deal with. So I'm just going to leave at 1 for some spice, just to make some people sad and confused when it happens. So you always got to like play for the passion, right? And whenever I play Brute or KO, I'm always doing it for the passion, which is why we go to my favorite card in the game, Savage Beatdown. This is a passion card, right? This is what you play for the passion. Nothing feels nearly as good as when you play Blood Rush Bellows and then end with a 14 damage Savage Beatdown at the end. I've loved this card ever since I played KO, and I'm surprised I don't see people playing it all the time, because for me, it's like, if you're not playing Cast Bones, this is one of your huge power cards, and it is not hard to get off between having Savage Sash as a curve to make this a 2 cost, and then even just having hands where you have an Agile Windup or a Mighty Windup in your hand, and you have a 4-card hand, just pitch the Windup, and then boom, send 12. It's like a really good setup turn. So I will never not play Savage Beatdown, and this card is not as clunky. I do have to be careful, though, because of how much I love it. You can't play towards it. Like, you shouldn't force it. If it happens, great. If you put it in an arsenal, awesome. But don't like get lost in the sauce seeing this card and just like going for the dream, right? Because again, as a Brute player, we want to live the dream, but sometimes you have to give up your big dream for the short term to invest in the long term. And so if this is just going to be a 3-block, 6 attack that you get like with an Apex to get a Might, that's what it's going to be, you know? Don't let it dictate you. You choose how you want to use it, you know? And then another one of my favorite KO cards, 3 Clash of Might. This card is so good. People are playing like Clash of Agility. Never quite understood that. I hate having the risk of giving my opponent an agility, and also sometimes if you're blocking and you get an agility, you can't always capitalize on it because you had to block. So like, why would I want to convert my blocking into extension for my next turn when I've already hindered my next turn by blocking, you know? Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Clash of Might is not like that though, you know? Like, it's already playing into the aspect of, if I'm blocking with this card and I'm netting value, it's always going to be paying off, because even if I just have to play a claw or something, right? Like, I'm getting that 4 value of it converting into a might. And so I play these typically when I'm going to be on a more defensive game plan, like if I'm playing into aggro decks and I'm expecting to play with 2-card hands and just try to convert into disruption. Clash of Might is so good. I mean, you have a turn where your opponent is really like coming at you with a big turn, like a Syndra or a Viz or something like that. And then you drop the Clash of Might, and sometimes you can even like pair this with an Apex Bonebreaker, right? And you create 2 more Mights, and then let's say you already had a 3rd Might, and then you send back a CNC for 9. Whew! That's sick. That's what we do it for, baby. So Clash of Might, I highly advise you play this card. I think this card is so good in KO, especially right now with this anti-meta package where you're just playing all the on-hits, the like 2-for-6 disruptive on-hits. Clash of Might is exactly what you want to be doing. All right, and then we got the 3 red pulping. Right now, there's just so many D-reacts floating around, you know, between like the new Shelter card and then Sink Below, and then, you know, you got like all these ninjas playing Wax On and Loyalty Beyond the Grave. Like, everyone's just got D-reacts in their deck right now, and it's just super unfun, super unchill, not cool for pulping. But it's still good if you're trying to race, like if you want to put out more damage or have more closing against an opponent that you don't expect to be trying to set up the D-react to stop you. Pulping is still a really good question card. You do have to be cautious depending on if you're playing into a deck you suspect to be having D-reacts. Like, don't get blown out by it. You know, if they're just having a card sitting in their arsenal for 3 turns, don't open your turn with the pulping and be like, we're going to be fine, just let's hope. Don't play into it. Don't let them have that satisfaction, you know? Let the pulping pulp for you. Don't get pulped by the pulping, right? That's another life lesson you can hold on to for your future children if you want to share that with them. But I also have this sometimes as like if you're going to play like 63 or 66 cards, if you're playing into a Guardian or something, it's fine to have this, especially as a closing potential. Just being able to throw the Dominate at the end of the game to finish them off is still super relevant. I was playing yellows, but I did cut those just again. It's not as fast as the meta is right now. There's still so much mid-ranging going on and so many D-reacts. And if somebody sits down across from you as a KO, they're just going to assume you're having pulping, and they're just going to put a D-react to try to play around it. So again, don't let them get you like that. So 3 pulping is fine. It's a good resource if you want to have more extension and more go again and more pressure. But I don't think playing the yellows is necessary right now, especially because it's another non-block too, right? Like, at least my 2-for-6 is block, right? And then we got one of the new cool cards, you know, the new support that we got for KO, Thick Hide Hunter. When I first saw this card, I was really sad. The art is insane. I love the art on this card. But I was like, man, what a useless card. 2-for-6 block that makes me discard another card. Although it's not cost, the idea was cool, but I was thinking, going into this meta with all these like small little dagger hits and stuff like that, why would I want a card like this? It just doesn't seem very good. I yelled at Brian. I told him it was a badly designed card and that, you know, like, I was really disappointed with him. And he shared my woes. But after playing with it some time, I can confidently say the card is super, super mediocre. But that's better than I thought it was going to be, right? You know, I thought it was going to be trash, but now we've moved into playable mediocre. But on a serious note, it does do a lot of what you, surprisingly, right? I thought about in bad situations where if you have this in your hand with Reckless Swing or a Blood Rush, you immediately get into an awkward situation where it's like, okay, if I block with this, I could discard my Blood Rush, and that's going to be super sad. Not ideally what you want to be doing. Same with Reckless Swing. But the nice thing about it is, the thing that surprised me the most that I overlooked was the fact that it's a yellow 2-cost. And that is actually very relevant, especially in KO where you kind of want your curve to always be like 2 cost into the claw with a blue and ending with another 2 cost. This being that and not also having to have the like cost of having to discard a card is actually super, super relevant. And I've had a number of like payoffs too where I block with this and then I discard a non-block, which I think is kind of like the theory behind it, where it can convert one of your non-blocking cards into a 3-block essentially. And I've had that happen before, you know, and that actually feels really good. It does smooth out a few of the inconsistencies and the few problems that KO had. Which I'm very happy with. You know, like now after playing with it, giving it a more of a fair chance, and seeing its potential, I am very satisfied with the card as a whole. I do think it deserves a slot in the deck. I have it in the sideboard right now. It's really shined for me against like Assassins, obviously Guardians, even like Vincent, anything that you expect to have to be blocking a little bit taller. And then sometimes you can just have the dream where, you know, you block with like 3 cards and this or whatever, if you ever needed that for some reason. But you can just do some like ridiculously huge blocks if you really needed to. But yeah, really good card. I'm very happy with it. Thank you, Brian. I'm sorry I kind of what came at you about it, but I've seen the light and I understand what you were trying to do with this. So my bad. And then I end with Reckless Swing. I think that this card right now is still super relevant, especially into the Enigmas, having the interaction where you can kind of stop their turn by blowing up their wards with the Reckless Swing. They still have to respect it. I'm not playing this really into aggro decks just because I really hate having it as a brick in my hand or as a potential miss. So I'm more so playing this into the decks that I expect to mid-range against. So like Assassins, very good against the Assassins. Really good into Enigma, good into Prism. It's good into like Warriors or things like that. So I think if you're not playing Cast Bones, it allows you a little bit more freedom to have like these defensive options. No Fear is something I considered, but right now in this meta, I really don't see the potential of No Fear with all the flick knives and small instances of damage. The payoff for it doesn't seem nearly as high as it was during heavy hitters, where you were just kind of using it as a value trading system against these big hits. But Reckless Swing can still help you close out games. Obviously, it has closing potential. It has defense utility, kind of like the Thick-Hide Hunter, where you can convert some of these hands that don't block because they literally have no block value into a blocking value. So I really love this sideboard. One of the best things about KO is it's very straightforward. It's very simple, right? This is never going to change. And then you just get to throw in the 10 cards that you think are fun or cool. Like you put in the on hits that matter. You put in like, oh, am I going to be blocking more? Play Clash of Might. Am I going to be more aggressive? Play Pulping. Do I need more defense? Here's my little defense package, you know? So it's very simple and straightforward. Oh, and then you can just always play Savage Beatdown because you're a Chad and that's what we're supposed to be doing is hitting my opponent for 12. So Savage Beatdown might just be in my main deck, to be honest. I don't know if I'm ever not going to play that card. But for you guys, I'll leave it as a choice. It's in the sideboard for you. All right, and then we just get to the equipment. Again, KO is not that complicated with what he has. Make sure that you're being a respectful brute, though, when you show up to your RTNs. Don't be the guy or the girl who's like, hey, I don't have my might or agility tokens. Make sure you come prepared, right? Show up with pride. Bring your 2 mights. Bring your 2 agilities. And then, of course, always make sure you have that Quicken on you. You got to make sure, out of respect for your opponent, that you have the Quicken so that they know when you present Swing Big that you know what your card does, right? You show them the Quicken, be fair, make sure that they know all their options that they have. Like this Quicken I've had with me for, man, I don't know, probably like 3 or 4 years now. You could see how loved it's been and how many times I've given it to my opponents, but this will never leave my box. It's always going to be with my boy KO over here. And then also, if you're going to be a brute, make sure you're lore accurate. I know some of you guys like your left claw, but come on, he has a right arm. It's only right. It has to be the right claw. That is just the lore accurate claw to use. I'm sorry. I know it's a preference, but I have to be lore accurate. Then we get to our equipment: Scowling Flesh Bag, Savage Sash, Apex Bonebreaker, Scab Skins. This is just your bread and butter, man. I mean, this is where it's at. The thing that you'll notice about this meta is you have all these super hyper aggressive decks, but they have like no clothes, bro. They got like no Nikes, they got no hype beast, they got nothing on, bro. They're just like going in there with some fresh linens, you know? But as a brute, we got the fridge, baby. We got some thick equipment, and it actually is very relevant right now too. The durability that you have with this, especially with Fleshbag, I mean, the Assassins and the Ninjas still just hate this card. I mean, you can really shut down some games, like just straight up win games because of Scowling Fleshbag. So make sure that you're being really, really cautious in how you use this card, and that you're getting really good value from it, because it can straight up just win games. Savage Sash, obviously, super good. And then Scabskins, right? I know some people are playing the little booties, what are they called? Beaten Trackers. But like, so much of your potential comes from the ability to just roll. Yes, Beaten Trackers are more consistent, but you are losing out on the blocking value and just the value throughout the entire course of the game. You know, some of these decks are just so unfair now. To be unfair, you have to roll Scabs. That is what pushes you to the level of being an unfair deck, because what we are doing is very good math and consistent, but I wouldn't say that we're really unfair anymore, you know? Not when you got like Syndra's flicking daggers on like chain links and continuing their mass kit triggers and stuff like that. So make sure that you're playing into the Scab skins. We're brute players. We showed up to the day to roll. We knew we were gonna roll. That's what we're there to do. Don't be afraid of it. You know, I know that some people think like it's about the dice. They practice rolling all their different dice to see which one hits better. Maybe it's a vibe thing. Maybe you like feel a certain dice is best. But I'm telling you now, it's not about the dice. It's about your spirit. It's about when you sit on that table and you say, I'm rolling Scabs, you got to beat that chest a bit. You got to just feel the brute in you, man. And you roll that dice and you will hit, I promise. Or you'll hit a 1 and it won't feel as bad because you committed to that and you accepted your fate prior to. But, you know, just roll. That's all I got to say. Just roll. And then we got our sideboard equipment. I do play Tunic. I think right now there might be some people at your RTNs playing Jarl, which I think is not a bad pick, to be honest, especially into all the new heroes. I think that Jarl is a relatively, I'll say he'll be represented. I don't know how well he will do. But like, I think the Tunic is still pretty relevant into that. It can preserve your hands from the Winter's Bite. You have this on the board, ideally a little bit longer, as long as they don't like destroy it. But it'll help you prevent, like, you pop your Savage Sash and you open yourself up to getting Frostbites. I do think that matchup is pretty good, but I also still want to respect the deck. I also play Tunic into Enigma. I actually don't know if that's correct. Like, Savage Sash allows for that big turn. But against Enigma, I just want to be like consistently throughout the whole game, throwing big damage and just performing well throughout the entirety of the game. I don't want to just have to rely on like 3 to 4 spike turns. So I feel like Tunic kind of evens out your game plan throughout the entirety of the game. There might be some other matchups where Tunic is actually better than Sash. This is kind of like my one floating slot where this could be Spellfray, it could be Tunic. If you want to add another card into the sideboard, you could replace it with this. I don't know if it's really necessary. I just find that it is relevant, and I do want to explore it a little bit more before I cut it entirely from the sideboard. And then, of course, we have our AB3. I do think Kanos are still going to be running around. I think Kano isn't a horrible pick. I do think Kano is like a pretty bad matchup, though, for KO. If there was 2 decks that I didn't want to see as KO, it would be Aurora and Kano. I think that it's really hard for us to overwhelm Kano unless he has just like all these non-blocking hands and stuff like that. Like, I'll play Weakest Link just to hope that I can snipe a potion or something out of his hand. But we attack on a very like vertical scale, right? Like big numbers, and he's totally content with just throwing his hand down and playing a potion. And we can't really like pressure super hard. So I was playing Spellfray Boots, but I kind of just want to play the Scab skins just so that we can roll, right? Just make sure you could roll and just keep converting these hands into Kano to try to just beat him down. But having AB3 is better than nothing. And then Aurora, I have such a hard time with that matchup just because they have such a huge fridge. All of their stuff just kind of gets around your normal brutish blocking habits where the 4s are always hard to block. All the instances of 1 arcane are always going to either pull a card from your hand or convert into another card for them. So you're always in these horrible like lose-lose situations. And then they're able to convert their hands so easily with evasion, with all the instant speed stuff. So I think that matchup is pretty tough. hopefully you guys have some better plans or a better approach to the matchup. I just slot in a bunch of disruption and just hope that I can race them. But it's not unwinnable. You just have to hope that they like don't see their CLVs or their arc lightnings. But as soon as they get a CLV on board, things get a little sus, especially with the Sigil of Suffering and all that. So I don't know if that's a matchup you want to bring in the Null Rune Gloves or just say forget it and race them with full armor. But that is the choice. So yeah, this is the deck. Again, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I wanted to make this because I was kind of looking around to see what people were doing for KO for Hunted. I wasn't really seeing a ton of lists. There weren't a lot of deck lists on YouTube. I mean, as I was going through Discord and stuff like that, I saw a few, but nothing quite like this really. And I think that this deck is super fun. You know, in my heart, I'm a Brute player. I've always been a Brute player since the first day I started playing this game was Rhinar. And this is the way I have the most fun playing the game. Like when I sit down and play KO and I get to just roll dice and beat my chest and just kind of be a fool, that's my favorite way to play the game. So this is probably what I'm going to be bringing to my RTN season just for fun. And you could still win games. I still think it's not a bad pick. Like I still think that you can definitely have the potential to top 8 and win with a deck like this. But do it for the passion, guys. You know, that's what we're here to do. We're here to play good games, play with our friends, hang out, be a part of the community, and just have a good time. And there is no better time to play the game than when you are rolling dice and beating your chest like an idiot. And that is how I have the most fun. And I don't know what that says about me, but you can decide for yourself. So as per usual, like and subscribe, leave some comments. I'm not going to provide the February link again because the deck list is right here. Please go ahead and watch the video. And if you have any comments, let me know. But otherwise, again, I'm Sam Dando. This has been a great time. Your local friendly brute. I'll be signing off, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, love you. Peace. Got a little spin. Jess, make sure you keep that in. Make sure you keep that in.